Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Adding Shade Sales to Your Business Model. Why now is the time to invest in something new. Created and paid for by Wholesale Shade and presented by Robin Dubroy and Greg Burrows with Wholesale Shade. My name is Megan Farrell, Education and Events Coordinator at IFAI, and I will be moderating today's session. IFAI is providing this webinar platform for companies to feature their products and services through our sponsored webinar program. IFAI has vetted the content and does not endorse or recommend any of the presentation. The opinions and content are exclusively those of the presenters. Wholesale Shade offers private label manufacturing of custom fit fabric shades to businesses in the trade. They take on the technical sewing aspects of the shade sale business, letting their customers focus on sales and installation. They make it easy for you to be in the shade business. During this presentation, you will have the opportunity to submit questions or comments to Robin and Greg by typing them into the questions box of your control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. You'll find the PDF presentation available to download under the Handouts tab of your control panel. With this, I would now like to introduce today's speakers, Robin and Greg.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope to make this session as informative and useful for you as possible. So please, like Megan said, think of those questions along the way, jot them down, put them in the comment box, and we'll do our best to get to all the questions at the end of the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like you all to sort of take a second and just think to yourself, what do I want to get out of this webinar today? What are you hoping for? What piece of knowledge are you hoping to gain? And again, jot that down. And if we didn't answer it or help you get closer to that piece of knowledge by the end of the webinar, put it in a comment box and we'll try to address it at the end. So I had a whole slide, actually several slides in this section planned about to talk about how the business world is changing, how it's important to take time to learn new things, but you all already know this. You're very aware of the business world and what's happening right now. In fact, it's why you're here today. You are already looking to pivot your business or add something to your business model. And you want to know how you can do that with shade sales. Well, guess what? Adding shade sales to your business is super easy, and we are here to help.
So we want to apologize this morning. We lost our video here, so you can't see our smiling faces. I got my hair all done for nothing. Anyway, it's been kind of a challenging year. You know, everybody's kind of confused where we're going to go, what we're going to do, but it seems like the shade and awning industries have stayed very busy. We've had a lot of restaurants, commercial areas working to expand their outdoors areas. So it's a really good time to take advantage of the growth in the industry.
So some of you might be asking, well, what exactly is a shade sale? Well, shade sales are the perfect new thing to add to your business model. Sometimes they're referred to as those triangle things, but they're cable tension shade structures designed to protect you and your loved ones from the harmful rays of the sun. They keep you cool while you are enjoying your outdoor eating areas, your play areas, and they do it all with unique eye-catching designs and aesthetics. Shade sails can come in just about any shape and size, which make them a versatile shade solution that will fit any space. They can be scaled down for small backyard projects or scaled up for large commercial needs. Many of you are already in the business of giving people shade. Shade sales allow you to keep providing wonderful service in a new and exciting way. They can open doors to new customers and even bring back old ones. Shade sales are still relatively new to the United States, although they've been around in Australia for many years. Here in the US, there's plenty of room for growth in the shade sale market. If you add shade sales to your existing awning business, there's a good chance that no one else in your area is doing shade sales already. And because of this, profit margins remain high. Shade sales may be new, but they are definitely catching on. People are beginning to recognize shade sales from their favorite park their church, or their neighbor's house.
So basically, shade sails have two main functions, design and shade. Here's a couple of examples of good design and good shade. So like the one on the lower right, the square sail gives the shade, but then there's a triangle sail that gives you some dynamic design. So it's a really creative process in order to get this stuff going.
So hopefully we've convinced you that shade sails are a great option for your business. If you already sell awnings, you're off to a really good start. You have knowledge of the shade industry and you know what people are looking for. If you're a general contractor, you too are off to a great start. You have construction and installation knowledge and know-how to work with your clients. Are you an architect? Shade sails are relatively easy to spec into your next job plan. Landscaper? Shade sails really allow you to take your wow factor up several notches. You already have important knowledge base that you will build upon and fine tune as you learn more about shade sails.
And that's kind of what we're going to focus on here. What are the essential skills that you need for shade sails in particular? You've got a base knowledge. You probably know something about selling, construction, design. But go ahead. We're gonna look at the next four kind of essential skill sets: design, installation, measuring. You'd be surprised. Reading the tape's a pretty easy thing, but we get a lot of jobs where the measurements just don't make sense. So we always include that as an essential skill. And then, of course, how to order it. So let's go over some customer knowledge first, some of the things you need to know about your customer. So you've got a prospect, and you want to gather some information. We have a prospect sheet that we use. We do local installations. So this is something we've developed for our local jobs here in San Diego. It's a way to kind of get a quick yes or no from the customer. And it's also a way to gather information that you're going to need later on if you do get a job. So one of the things we do with a customer right off the bat is get them over the sticker shock. If it's a residential, we tell them pretty quickly that it's going to be between $5,000 and $8,000. If they don't drop the phone, then you've maybe got a potential customer. Commercial jobs average between 20 and 30,000. So they need to know that it's an expensive proposition, but it's going to be a good quality product when they're done. The gathering the information part is going to help you later on. Why do they want a shade sail? Is it design or a shade? When do they want it? The week before July 4th? Everybody wants that day. It's kind of a yearly thing for us. What's the size and shape, permanence, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure you gather as much information as you can right up front before you get that yes or no.
One thing that you're going to find as you're talking to customers is that the only pricing structure that they are currently aware of with shade sails is what they've seen at Costco or Home Depot, which is typically around $200 or $300 for a sail that's probably only going to last them 2 to 3 years. And so part of what you need to do is make them comfortable with your pricing structure and understand the quality of the product they're getting compared to what they've already seen. So let's begin by taking a look at a case study. So the beginning of every job is a customer is coming to you with a need and you have a solution. So you're going to use that prospect sheet to gather your information, get as much information as you can to figure out how you can provide solutions to your customer. So in this scenario, we had our customer was basically getting too much sun. The first area was over this koi pond. You can see here how much sun this gets, and this is early morning actually. And what was happening was the sun was causing the algae to grow too fast, which is unhealthy for the fish, and the customers were having to clean it very frequently. So one of their primary concerns was covering and adding shade to this koi pond. The secondary concern was the pool equipment on the side of the house. The pool equipment was just getting beaten by the sun every day, and it was reducing the lifespan of the equipment here. And so they wanted to provide some shade here as well. And when we went to visit and assess these two areas, our installer also noticed this area at the back patio and began asking questions to the customer about this area as well. So despite the picture that you see on the screen here, this is early morning. In the afternoon, this area is in complete sun and it's too hot to utilize. This is a lovely back patio area that the family that lives here loves to host parties and have friends and family over. And they had planned this area to be a great hangout spot. It's just past the pool, but nobody was using it because it was too hot and uncomfortable. And so we said, you know what? I think we can make this a more usable space for you. We're doing shade sails over the koi pond and the pool equipment. How about if we design something for the back patio as well?
One of the things you want to do when you're talking to the customers is, don't overwhelm them with technical terms. In Shade Sail University, we have a whole glossary of terms, and there's 100 of them. There's all kinds of terms in this industry you can use, but you don't want to overwhelm the customer. Keep it simple, make them understand what they're looking for. You want to educate the customer.
And that's part of the challenge, is it's very likely that your customer is not going to have much experience with shade sails. And so you will need to educate them on how shade sails are going to be an ideal option that will meet their needs. So in our case study area here, the existing trees over the koi pond and the back patio weren't providing as much shade as they needed, and at the wrong times of the day, basically. The pool equipment was overheating in the sun, and the traditional awning in this area wasn't likely to fit the space well, and it wouldn't likely cover far enough out to actually cover the pool equipment. And this customer actually had seen their neighbors install some shade sails, so they kind of had a little bit of an idea already of how shade sails could fit and work for their space.
Well, let's look at some of those essential skills. The first one is design. The main thing here is to try to get to at least 4 connection points. Triangles have a dynamic look, but they just don't provide very much shade. So anytime you can get to 4 points or more, you're just going to have a better shade. You've got endless design options, a better fit, and it's going to be stronger and tighter. Typically with a 4-point sail, if you do what we call a high part shape, where 2 opposite points are low and the other 2 opposite points are high, you can pull it tighter because you're pulling down and up at the same time in the corners. That's a great option for design. Going back to what I said earlier, the first step with a customer in the design phase is to find out what they want. Do they want shade? Do they want something that looks dynamic? How many colors do they want? You want to really be able to focus on what the customer needs. Design is the most dynamic part of shade sails. You can overlap them, you can use varied colors, multiple heights. There's just kind of an unlimited way to use a shade sail as opposed to a pergola or something else. So design is a great thing to start with. In the beginning, keep it simple. Squares, rectangles, they don't have to be square. We custom make them when we fit them, but keep it simple in the beginning. One of the things you do want to do is check out Shade Sail University. We have a whole section on design and what you can do to make it better.
For example, in this picture here, this is our koi pond example, and you see the 2 posts in the middle. So functionally, it's not super necessary to have 2 posts this close to each other, but in terms of making sure the shade rounds around the koi pond, so it's fully covered at most times of the day, right? And also, speaking of design, the customer wanted to also make this a nice seating area. So they plan to put a bench in between these 2 posts and some extra plant life to really make it a really enjoyable, usable space. And so we measured the posts out, they fit the bench just right, and we really incorporated what the customer was looking for and hoping to see in the design.
So the next essential skill is installation. You've got to be able to hang these things when you get done. So the biggest part of a shade sail is the attachment points. The shade sails themselves, they're surrounded with a steel cable. They're put together with steel hardware in the corners. They're a very strong thing. They can handle a lot of wind and a lot of rain. Snow loads are not a good thing. If you're in a snow load territory, you need to take them down before the winter comes. But what we have here are basically easy, medium, and hard bracket connections. Top four there, those are the basics: inside corner, outside corner, wall plate, or an eye bolt. Those are strong. They're strong parts of the building. There's a lot of structure there to go to. So those are your preferable points to start with. The second set is a little more intense. If you're going along the fascia board, you can't attach to the fascia board. You got to get behind it and attach to the raft. You can do extension cables. You don't want to keep those out there too much. You don't want the sail just kind of floating in midair because it will float. And then the last section is really difficult ones. Roof brackets are a beautiful way to go, but they're dangerous. They can cause leaks. And then, of course, you can adjust things like T-posts and things like that. So there's a lot of varied attachment points, and you kind of got to look at a house or a backyard or a commercial area and find out which is the best way to go. Next up is the post. If you can't attach to the house or the building, you got to sink a post. Again, if something goes wrong, it's either the connection point or the posts themselves. So the rule of thumb is to have a third in the ground and 2/3 up. So if you're 10 feet in the air, you want to be 5 feet in the ground. Rule of thumb, it depends on the ground. Sandy soil, rocky soil, all makes a difference. So make sure you get the strength in both the connection point and the posts.
One thing to note here is you have to be really careful when you're digging. You always want to call Dig Alert first, or whatever your local underground identification organization is. This situation here, this post is one of the far posts closest to the pool for that back patio area. And we had discussed with the customer where the lines for the pool equipment ran underground, and we're confident that we were safely avoiding those with this post location. But what the customer had forgotten about was they had some outdoor speakers, and they had run some PVC pipe with the electrical wires for those speakers in this area. And so as we were digging, we broke right into that pipe and got right into those speaker wires. And so quick trip to Home Depot, we got some supplies, we fixed the wire, we fixed the pipe, but we had to move the location of the post about 1.5 feet further up the hill than we had originally planned. And so not only is it important to just dig carefully, but also this is why it's important that you get your attachment points, your posts set first before you start measuring for the sail itself. And we'll get into measuring for the sail in a little bit here.
So there's some other considerations at this point. If you're in a commercial situation and you've got permits, spec sheets, or engineering, these three things can add a lot of cash to the job and a lot of time for that matter. So if you think you're going to need permits, sometimes you can force that onto the customer and make them get the permits, but it's going to add time and cash to the job. So just make sure you don't need those things. Homeowners sometimes have limitations, what you can and can't do. So make sure you're thinking about those things as you go along. The last three here, maintenance, troubleshooting, and repair, those are things you're going to have to deal with after the fact. So in Shade Sail University, we have a whole chapter on how to troubleshoot. Customer calls you up and says, oh, all of a sudden my sail's not hanging tightly. And then you go out there and it looks like they took it down and then put it back up wrong. So there's a whole way to find out what happened to the shade sail if something did happen. Repairs are pretty easy. The fabric itself doesn't run or unthread once it gets cut. So you can stitch them up pretty easy. We have small kits with stitching needles and UV protected thread available. If it's a really bad tear, you can take the sail down, chip it back to us, and then we can do it here in the shop. One of the other things you might look at is some installation and removal contracts, a yearly, annual thing. If you're in the snow country or the hurricane country, these sails need to be taken down in the wintertime. So a lot of our customers will set up a maintenance contract to do just that. Take them down before winter comes and put them up after. It's a good way to make a little extra cash on a regular basis.
And remember, you likely already have experience in these areas with your current business. You have experience getting permits, using spec sheets, getting engineering done, maintenance and troubleshooting. These are not brand new concepts to you as a business owner. Shade sale might be a little bit of a change from what you're used to, but it's not going to be a huge pivot from what you already know.
All right, one more essential skill set here is reading a tape. Seems like a pretty basic, easy thing to do, right? But in this business, it's custom shade designs. We need to know that it's getting done right. So the first thing we want is a point-to-point measurement. It's not good to send us a finished size number. We want to use what the point-to-point is. The fabric can actually stretch 2 to 4%. So on a long sail, or 30-foot side, for example, that can be up to 14 inches. We'll calculate for the stretch of the fabric and what type of hardware is in each corner. The next thing you want to look at is just inside the eye here. So you can see what we've done. And that gives us a pretty good point to start making our measurements with. Measurements we need are obviously all of the outside dimensions. If it's a triangle, that's 3 dimensions. If it's a 4-point sail, rectangle, square, something like that, we need all of the cross dimensions as well. So here you can see in the upper right, this is a 4-point sail. We've got the outside dimensions and the 2 cross diagonals. That is 6 measurements we need in order to make that sail. Unless it's a perfect rectangle, it's the only way we can get the angles in the corner correctly. On the one on the right, that's a 5-point sail. So all of a sudden you've got 5 on the outside, 5 on the inside. Now you've got 10 measurements we need. 6-point sail can get pretty unruly in terms of measurements. Last thing we need is heights. It may not seem like much, but when you have a curved sail with alternate heights, if you give me a measurement that's straight across, it's 1 dimension. But when the sail gets curved, it's another dimension. So on anything more than a flat sail, we need to know what the heights are in each corner. And sometimes you've got a sloping ground where you can't really measure up straight from a level part. So if you say one point is 0 feet and then the other 2 are -feet, +feet, we can go off of that. So one of the things you want to be very careful with is measurements. I can't tell you how many times one measurement is off, but I can't tell you which one it is. The software doesn't let me know. So then you're back out measuring the job again, and it's an hour away. So make sure you measure twice.
And we have a couple of really good videos on our YouTube channel that demonstrate the need for cross dimensions and height measurements and really show visually how and why those work. Also, when you're doing measurements, if you're giving us measurements, we have sometimes people will give us one measurement in feet and another one in inches. And either one is totally fine. We just ask that you be consistent with which one you use. And before we move on, I want you to take a second, now that you've heard all about measuring and how you measure for your shade sail, take a second, think about it, write it down on your paper. What measurement would you write down for the picture shown here? Hopefully, you said 26 feet 4 inches. That would be the correct measurement that you would note on your order sheet for the point-to-point just inside the eye bolt measurement shown here.
All right, next essential skill is ordering the sail from us. This is our order form. It's also a quote form, but it doesn't seem like a very lot of information, but it's everything we need in order to make a shade sail for you. There's a lot of information that we need that you probably wouldn't think about on a normal basis. So if you get this thing filled out correctly, not only can we make the sail, but so can you or anybody else. This is all of the information that we need to make a shade sail. So the first part of the sail is the header. We'll get to fabric and color here in a second. The header information has, your name, contact information, that kind of stuff. But the two bits of information that are really critical is signature required with delivery. I can't put this in the mail unless I know whether you want to sign for it when you receive it. The other thing is we can ship to your customers direct. Call it a blind ship. It looks like it came from you. They don't know who we are, but if you want to do that, we need to know right there. The next line is fabric. Manufacturer, who's going to make your fabric? Is it Polyfab? Is it Gale? What fabric are you going to use? Color, obviously we need to know the color. It won't matter when we're doing a quote, but when we actually make the sale, we're going to need to know what color it is. Next up is hems up or down. This is one of the ones that most people forget. When we fold over the edge of the fabric, it creates a hem like in your Levi's. So we just need to know whether you want it facing the sky or facing the ground. It doesn't make any difference functionally, but it makes a big difference when we go to make the sale. Next one up is cable size. If you're going to do the cable yourself, that's fine. You have to have cable. You can't just not use it. But if we provide it, we need to know what size and whether you want to use cable with a D-ring and a thimble in it. So a little bit of information there. The D-ring itself can be just a regular D-ring, but if you're using cable, we have a D-ring that uses a thimble inside of it. So when the cable goes in one corner, all the way around the sail and comes out the same corner, it allows the cable to go gently around the corner instead of being kinked at each one. Then we need to know what hardware you're going to use in the corner. Which corners get a turnbuckle, which corners get safety cable, bow shackles, that kind of thing. Again, you're welcome to provide your own hardware, but I need to know what hardware you're using in each corner so that I can reduce the sail to fit. If you don't give me that information, the sail's going to be too big. The edge option section is for non-cable sail situation. You're going to use webbing in the edge. If it's going to be a panel with grommets around the side and straight edges, is it going to have a Keter rail? A lot of this information is in our Shade Sail University. Measurements. Again, we just went over the measurements phase. These are the bits of information we need in the drawing section. You can do this as an attachment, or you can actually draw it in the section of the order form. If you give us A, B, C, D, we will actually label those corners and put this document in the Shade Sail box when you receive it. The installer knows where A corner goes and where B corner goes. We need the north arrow just to if there's more than one sail, we want to make sure that the seams in the middle of the sail are going in the right direction. We don't want them crossing each other. Anytime there's multiple sails, we need to know the north arrow so that we can line the sails up properly.
And remember, like Greg mentioned at the beginning of this slide, whether or not you order a sail from us or you decide to sew it yourself, all of the information that we just covered here is the critical information that you need to know, you need to gather from your job site for the proper production of your shade sail so that it will fit properly. Once you get the poster set, the brackets are installed, the sail is made, the rest of the installation is actually pretty easy. You're going to start with the hardest to reach corner first because it's going to be the easiest to attach. So if you've got one corner where you need to get up on a really tall ladder, do that one first. It's really quick, easy, you're up and down in a minute. And then continue around the sail, attaching the remaining corners. You're going to have all of your turnbuckles be completely open when you attach everything. As you get to the last couple of corners, you're going to find that the sail is going to be much harder to pull tight. You're going to need like a rope, as you can see in the top right picture here, or maybe a ratchet strap to help pull and stretch that sail so that it reaches your corner. After all of the corners are attached, then you go through and you tighten you tighten and clamp down the cable, then you tighten all the turnbuckles, lock nuts on the turnbuckles, and the sail is set. It's done. It's actually really quite easy. So let's revisit our case study here. So in the beginning, remember we had the 3 areas of concern. We had the koi pond, the pool equipment, and the back patio. So for the koi pond, you've seen this picture already, but we were able to provide this is really a 7-point, I believe, sail here in this area that not only protects the koi pond, but really makes this a more enjoyable space to sit and relax. Remember, I talked about the couple is going to put a nice little bench here. And in the initial plan, we were not going to extend the point all the way to the right, but we realized that there was going to be a little bit more sun coming in from that angle in the afternoon. And by extending the sail this 1 extra point, it really did provide a lot more shade for this area. And then we have the pool equipment getting covered here, which we were able to attach 2 posts to the existing retaining wall here. And we used 3 attachment points along the house. And we used that middle attachment point there to reduce the curvature along the side. You can see we have 2 small curves instead of 1 long curve. And that provided more shade, not only for the pool equipment, but actually the added bonus of shading the 2 windows in the house. So these rooms get extra shade during the day and keeps the house generally cooler. And then finally, that back patio, you can see we have a really dynamic design here. We have a custom curve that goes around that palapa. And now this space is usable, enjoyable, and looks great doing it. So you may be wondering the best way to price out shade sails. We covered this top chart here on what the average customer cost would be for residential and commercial jobs. Your cost, if you buy the sail and the hardware from us, is typically about $4.50 a square foot, depending on which fabric you use and all that. But let's talk about how we priced out the sails in our case study today. So this job did not require any permits, so there was no added cost there. The customer costs for the posts, we charge about $1,000 per post, but the actual cost for the metal, the concrete, is really about $300 per post. And there were 8 posts total for this project. Brackets, we charge $200 per bracket to install for a customer, and the actual cost of the bracket is somewhere around $30. The shade sails at the $6–7 a square foot range for the customer came out to about $3,800, but our cost was $2,900. So you can see here that the profit margins are still really quite high for this shade sail project.
Let's look at what it takes to, sorry about that, hang on, doing that with my left hand. All right, what do you need for your investment? What should you buy? What should you, work on? So one of the things is the website. This is our cover website. We get a lot of activity from our website. You'll see we have Shade Sail University there, products galleries. It's pretty rare people use magazines anymore. So we've had way more interest via our website or social media.
Most people that contact us and we ask them how they found us, it's either word of mouth, they know somebody who purchased from us, or they Googled and found our website and really liked what they saw on our website. Pictures, good pictures on your website are key. Whoops.
So the biggest expense could be something like this, a digger auger. Whether you rent it per job or try to buy one, it's pretty essential. It's really hard to dig a 2 foot deep, 2 foot wide, 4 foot deep hole. So this really speeds everything up. These pieces of equipment also come with cement mixers and bucket loaders and that kind of thing. So it really makes the construction of the job go well. The other thing is a toolkit. This is pretty much everything you need to hang a sail. Not very complex. One of the biggest problems is you loan somebody a wrench and then your toolkit's not there when you need it. But this is it. Not a ton of tools you need over and above what you already have in your skill set.
One thing I want to just add here, in the top right-hand corner of this picture, you'll see a tube of white lithium grease. This is really important to have because this is what you use to put on your turnbuckles to prevent them from seizing up. We always provide a little tube of anti-seize with every turnbuckle that we give with your shade sail order, but this is something you want to have in your toolkit handy so that those turnbuckles don't lock up on you.
Next thing you need is a good post supplier. We don't supply posts; they're very expensive to ship. So you got to find somebody locally that you can get a 4 or 6 inch steel post from. It's kind of one of those things that pricing wise can be pretty varied these days, but it's definitely a supplier you need. Next thing you need is a good shade sail supplier, and we happen to know somebody that can do that for you. Wholesale Shade, that's all we do. We make shade sails all day long. We have the right equipment. We have a plotting machine that is 14 feet wide and 60 feet long, so that we can cut the sails on a machine and then make sure everything is just done just right. Next thing is the Shade Sail University book. Robin's baby, she's really happy with it. She made it, and I suggest you get one.
So what resources are available to you as you begin this journey? Well, Wholesale Shade. We really aim to be a resource for you in the shade industry. We have our Wholesale Shade website, which includes an additional section for Shade Sail University with free membership. We have our YouTube channel. We will be having a booth at the IFAI Expo this year in November. We have the Shade Sail University book. And we'll be rolling out Shade Sail University hands-on in-person training, hopefully in January. We would love to see you all come out and visit us. But really, like Greg mentioned, we make shade sails here. It's what we do. We make high-quality shade sails, and we have really quick lead times. We're here when you give us a call. We offer guidance and personal support as you're working through your projects. And we really aim to make it easy for you to be in the shade business.
One of the things we want to kind of point out here is a business life cycle. This is a pretty typical life cycle of anything, whether it be crayons or anything, right? In the beginning, you're going to see a lot of growth. In the end, it's going to tend to decline. So right now in this industry, we're still growing. Australia is on kind of a decline, but in America here, we're still growing pretty crazily. People are beginning to find out what these things are, and it's a good thing for us. Additionally, this time that we're having with the virus and all is kind of made it even more growth oriented. So it's a great time to be in the business.
All right, and that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we will do some questions and answers here in a second, but just a reminder to check out the website, wholesaleshade.com, particularly the Shade Sail University section. Give us a call in our office here if you have questions, send us an email, come and visit our booth at the Expo. We look forward to seeing you all. We will also be doing a campfire session at the Expo on November 5th at 11 a.m. that will be related to Shade Sail University. And ask for your copy of Shade Sail University. We have several books here, courtesy of Polyfab, printing them out for us. And so give us a call and we can put one in the mail for you.
Thank you so much, Robin and Greg. I do have a couple questions for you to get started. What is the hardest thing about entering the shade sail industry?
So one of the hardest things I've found when people call me on a regular basis is just feeling comfortable with the process. They're uncertain how to price it and how to design it. So that's kind of what we did here today, was to try to make you feel more comfortable and confident getting into the business and doing that first sale.
And another key tool for that is really Shade Sail University as well. There's a lot of resources in there to help you learn and get comfortable with all the aspects of the process.
That's great, thank you. Are there advantages of using cable edges versus the webbing?
Yeah, the cable is the technically best way to go. The cable at that point is separate from the fabric itself. So the fabric stretches, like I talked about earlier. So when you stretch a fabric out, then attach the cable, that's what really makes it fit perfectly. Whereas the webbing is actually sewn into the edge. So you can't stretch out the fabric like you would with a cable structure. We don't recommend going longer than an 18-foot length with any kind of a webbing situation. The cable is a little more difficult to install, but technically it's the best way to do it.
All right, next question. How do you size the posts in terms of strength?
Depends on the size of the sail and where it's going. So a 30-foot by 30-foot shade sail, you would probably be at a minimum of a 4-inch Schedule 40 steel pole, third in the ground and 2/3 up. If you're at a school or a government job, you might want to go up to 6 inches. Anything over probably 45 feet by 45 feet, you're probably going to want to get an engineer involved. A lot of it depends on what part of the country you're in as well.
We always recommend that you use steel posts and avoid wood posts as much as possible.
Yeah, the wood posts will get wet and dry, and with a constant pressure sideways, it'll just eventually bend the post, whether it's a 6x6 or whatever. Anything short of a telephone pole, stay away from wood.
All right, we have a lot of questions coming in here. Do you sell to individuals?
Yes, we do have a retail side of the business. It is a retail pricing structure. And then we also sell wholesale. That's our main part of the business. But if you're an IFAI member, we will sell to you at the wholesale pricing.
Awesome. What size cable do you use?
Again, it depends on the size of the sail. We provide typically either a 3/16 inch cable, a 1/4 inch cable, or a 3/8 inch cable. And then we also size up the hardware to go along with them. So we have a small, medium, and large hardware, turnbuckle, D-ring, and that as well. So a small sail, 12 by 12, you're going 3/16. Anything above 20 by 20, you want to go to 1/4 inch. When you get into 3/8 inch, you're probably at a 40 by 40 size. So a lot of it depends again on where you're going. Is it windy? Is it, in snow country? There's a lot of variables there, and we can help you with that. When you first send us the job, if I notice something that's just not going to work, believe me, I'll give you a call and say, hey, let's revisit that size.
Okay, what new and emerging markets do you see for the shade sail use?
So we have seen a huge uptick in not only homeowner shade sail interest, but restaurants as all the homeowners have been sort of stuck at home and they're trying to either do home improvement projects or really make their home space more enjoyable. They're really looking to enhance their backyard areas. And so we see a large uptick in that, as well as landscapers adding shade sails to their offerings. And then the restaurant industry is really looking to expand into outdoor seating so that they can maintain operations at this time. And so that is another large growth area that we didn't really see a lot before.
Wonderful. So we have Pete here saying, hi from England. Great information on permanent structures. Do you have any tips for pop-up temporary event shades?
Yeah, pop-ups are a little bit of a problem. Shade sails are a little more permanent than that. Welcome from England, by the way. We have been, because of the restaurant needs, we've been working on kind of a temporary structure where we fill a 280-gallon water tote square thing that's about 4 feet by 4 feet. And that kind of water lets us set the pole nice and strong. So we haven't really perfected it yet, but temporary structures with shade sails are not the best way to go.
Yeah, it's kind of what Greg is talking about is it's kind of the post, instead of being set in the ground, is set on a flat platform that we then weigh down with the water tank. And so it's still in the design phase, or like the trial and error phase, because shade sails are really strong. That inward pulling pressure can be about 200 pounds at rest and 2,000 pounds in a storm. So you really want to make sure that those posts don't bend inward.
All right, can you surface mount?
Yes, we can surface mount. I'm assuming you mean to the wall. If you're mounting to a wall, you need to make sure you get to the structure of the building. A stud or a header or something like that. It will pull, because of that 2,000 pounds of pressure, it'll pull right out of a stucco wall or a brick wall, or a fascia board. It's very critical you make sure that where you mount is very strong.
Okay, are powder coated aluminum posts a good choice?
Powder coating is a great choice. Aluminum, not too many people use aluminum. Most people go to steel. Again, it kind of depends on the size of the sail and where you're putting it. Aluminum certainly is easier to work with, but it's not a very common choice.
Do you encounter clients that don't get the concept of shade? Would they want sun and rain coverage all in one? Do you use waterproof materials?
We don't normally use waterproof materials, but that's just us personally. The problem with waterproof is if you don't design it with a lot of slope, it gathers the water and then tends to break the sail, much like a snow load. So we just had so many customers that weren't designing them properly. We just personally made the decision not to use it. Just had too many problems with it. But there are people that make it. You can make them. One of the things that we personally don't do.
And we do get a lot of customers that really miss that concept a little bit. And what we do tell them in regards to when it rains, the shade sail material is a high density polyethylene knitted fabric. And so if you give it a good design where you can put some curve in there or some slopes in there, most of the water is just going to run off the sides. Because it's knitted, some water will come through, but it's really not a lot. And so while it's not completely waterproof, it is going to provide you some protection. Again, that sloping design is important to help the water run off the side. And another thing that customers sometimes don't understand is that shade sails have a natural curve along the edges. You're not going to get a straight edge with a shade sail. And so that does impact how much shade they get at different times of the day. And so if you can create a visual representation, whether you use a program like SketchUp or you just hand draw it and show them with the curves, the shade sail, to see look, when the sun moves across the sky, the shade's going to move underneath and that curve is going to impact it as well.
But yes, it's very, very hard to get a customer that understands the curve. In other words, you're looking a 20 by 20 shade sail is going to give you 18 feet by 18 feet of coverage with a corner hardware. And then you've got the curved edges. So the rule of thumb is to make it the actual area 20% bigger than the shade you want. So it's important to know not only how much shade they want, but what time of day they want it in. But yes, there are some tools out there. Inpanel has some great tools for design and showing the customer what they're going to actually get. But it's important to be able to let the customer know where the shade will be and what time of the day it will be.
All right, can you provide printed shade sails?
Shade sails, you can't print on them. Number one, they stretch. Whatever you do print on them will break right off. Plus, it's a high density polyethylene, so nothing really adheres to it. But here at Shade Sail or Hood Sail Shade, we do have a way for basic logos where we can cut out the shape. We've done a pirate skull and bones, for example, where we cut out the pirate shape and then sewn in a different color. So it's not really a printed section setup, but we can do simple logos print where we actually cut the shade and then sew in a different panel. It's a very nice look, actually.
And we do have some examples on the website under the gallery page of some different graphics that we've sewn into sales. There's a high school logo. I think it's a cougar, and it's orange and black, which are their school colors. So we can do some really fun designs, and they look really unique.
All right, next question. When are posts required to be set at an angle?
Okay, the post angle is not required. The problem is if you put a post in perfectly plumb, when you really crank down on a shade sail and it moves it in 1/4 of an inch, we'll see it. It just visually looks funny. By tilting it out 4 or 5 degrees at an angle, you don't have that look visual problem, and you actually add a little more shade for the same footprint. A lot of times in playgrounds, they'll tilt them out 5 feet, you know, so you get a lot more shade for the same area where you're putting a pole. So tilt is a visual thing. It's not a functional, practical thing.
Okay, I have another question, which I believe is in reference to the surface mount question. Can this style be retracted like a pergola? Surface mount to a deck or slab?
Greg's losing his voice over here.
Sorry about that. No, retractable is not an option with this type of a shade sail. It's not a permanent situation, but to take it down, you'd have to loosen up the turnbuckles, unhook a bow shackle, and then take it out. So it's not something that goes in and out. It doesn't slide. It's a semi-permanent situation.
If you really want something that you can manipulate during the day, at different times of the day, slide wires are a good option for that. And we use a slightly different material that kind of folds a little bit better for those. But that's a good option to manually adjust the shade coverage in an area. But it's a very different setup than a shade sail.
All right. Are all hardware SS?
Yes, we use all stainless steel hardware and 316 strengths.
You can have the option of doing galvanized cable, but the hardware is all stainless steel.
Wonderful. And it looks like there are no more questions. I'll give everyone a couple seconds to get their last questions in. And then we just got another question. What is the max size shade you can use for posts?
For posts, we've done them up to about 70 feet by 70 feet over a water park, but that is a very big post in an engineered type situation. You know, they're doing stadiums out of some of this material. So the fabric structures area can get really big and crazy. It's not kind of what we do. We're doing smaller homeowner commercial sales, but we've done them up to 75 feet by 75 feet. That's one of the beauties of shade sails is you can span 75 feet without having any center posts. So, you know, you can get over a park where you just don't have a place in the middle to put a post. So the spans on these things can be very nice.
All right, another question. In the event a client doesn't want posts, can you use the cable to span a long distance to reach a mounting point / wall?
Yes, you can. Cables work excellent. If you can get a couple of 3 points along a house and then you got to get to the corner of a yard or something like that, you can go 15 or 20 feet with a cable. walls in general aren't really built to pull sideways. They're built to stay up straight and down. So walls aren't the best connection point, but and neither are trees, especially palm trees. They move in the wind. Big old oak tree, yeah, that's a good idea, but be careful with trees and your connection points. But if you've got to go to the corner of an area that's not where they want the shade, you can use an extension cable. Try to stay away from all extension cables. That tends to make a sail that just kind of floats in midair, and it's hard to pull tight, so it tends to literally float.
Okay, why HDPE type fabrics and not something more eco-friendly?
I don't know that there's an eco-friendly option. You know, the fabric itself was designed in Australia to specifically handle UV rays. They were having a problem with the ozone down there, and skin cancer became a really big problem. So the government mandated that schools especially have a good UV protected area. So most of the HDPE products provide anywhere from 90 to 98% UV protection. So that's how they were designed. I'm not opposed to using an eco-friendly product. I'd love to see it.
And from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think most of the material is recyclable. It's just a matter of finding a facility that will recycle it.
All right, and we'll do one more question. Is there reinforced stitching such as a sail?
The stitching we use between the panels, the fabric itself is either 10 or 12 feet wide, depending on the vendor. So we use a double needle stitch in the seams. We use Tenera UV protected thread. And then along the edge, our first fold over is a 1/2 inch. We stitch that, and then the pocket itself is a 2 inch. So our corners are reinforced with webbing. You know, it's a very strong corner. But yes, the stitching is part of the process that we are very focused on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to Robin and Greg. Any unanswered questions that we didn't get to, you can send those directly to Robin and Greg to answer. As we wrap up, there will be a very brief 3-question survey that will appear when you exit the webinar. We'll hope you take a few minutes to complete it. Otherwise, thank you all so much for attending and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.